Bob, I want to start by asking you why these four countries for Premier Li? He's visiting Ethiopia, Nigeria, Angola, and Kenya. Why did he choose to visit these four countries on the African continent? And why has Premier Li chosen to start with Ethiopia, you think?
Right. You know, there's always this, what some people refer to as a beauty contest among East African countries when it comes to Chinese interests on the continent. But you must remember, Africa is a 54-nation, continent, and therefore the Premier cannot surely make, visits to 54 nations at the same time. Ethiopia is of critical importance to China and indeed other, global economies because it is the headquarters of the African Union. It is also the headquarters of the new Partnerships for Africa Development called NEPAD, as well as the Economic Commission for Africa, which is a UN entity. And therefore, the Premier's visit to Addis Ababa is a way in which he can be able to make a statement to the entire continent. As we must have seen, we saw in the speech he delivered earlier today, he actually touched on Chinese African policy, and therefore through Addis he's able to touch on the interests of nearly all the 54 countries on the continent. But besides that, Ethiopia has enjoyed very good relations with China. Indeed, the infrastructure in Ethiopia, if you go to the city today, it looks like a construction site. There are roads, railways coming up and so forth. And the underlying theme for all this is that most of them have Chinese capital as what is making the infrastructure to grow rapidly. Indeed, one of the major infrastructure in Ethiopia is a rail transport system modeled on the rail transport system here in Beijing, which just shows the modernization of African economies with Chinese technology and capital. Moving on, Nigeria, as we mentioned earlier, has become only in April Africa's largest economy by GDP. GDP of about 500 billion US dollars. And therefore, Nigeria is very important, but more importantly so, Nigeria is hosting in this week the World Economic Forum for Africa, and Premier Li Keqiang is one of the keynote speakers at this event. Moving on to, I think probably touching quickly on Angola. It's also one of the countries where Chinese investments have helped a great deal. Angola has one of the hugest reserves of gas and petroleum, and therefore it's an important country. And similar factors play out in the Kenyan case.
All right, so lots of strategic relationships to be built upon these countries in China. Now, Bob, you talked about making a statement. We've seen in the past 2 years both of China's top leaders essentially making a trip to the African continent. How does this trip by Premier Li build upon President Xi Jinping's visit to Africa last year?
I think one of the key areas for me, because there are many dimensions to the China-Africa relations. There could be political, peace building and so forth. But for me, the critical one is to do with infrastructure. During President Xi Jinping's visit to Tanzania, Congo and South Africa last year, one of the key infrastructure layout that he rolled out was a port in Bagamoyo, Tanzania, which will emerge as one of the biggest on the continent. And throughout the President Xi Jinping's visit, he insisted on the role of infrastructure. Africa learning from China's early beginning with development, where Chinese leaders decided that if you want to develop, you first of all develop a road. You develop infrastructure to reach resources and speed up development. So similarly, Premier Li Keqiang's insistence on infrastructure is one of the threads that we see in the developments. But also on the cultural end, there's been talk of the Chinese dream, and increasingly Africans are also seeing that the Chinese dream is also the African dream. It can be the African dream. And the African dream, similar to the Chinese dream, is one that is underpinned by economic development, so that the peoples of these developing nations, because China is still also a developing nation, just like most all African countries, so that peoples of the two regions can actually enjoy greater prosperity. So there is a tie there in that President Xi Jinping announced the Chinese dream in Tanzania last year for the very first time in March last year. But similarly, President Li Keqiang's, Premier Li Keqiang's visit seems to grow that, to develop that and to take it to the next level.
All right. Many thanks for your insights tonight. Bob Wekesa, Research Associate at the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa. Many thanks for your thoughts on that.